What's up, everybody? Today's news just came out. Chris Mack is out at Louisville. Buddy Boeheim may have his dad come out at Syracuse. I don't know, because when the looks of it, Syracuse is not having a great time. We'll talk about Jim and company as well as some of the Tuesday matchups, and then I'll get you covered for what happened on Wednesday night here with Tyler Aki from Locked On Syracuse. Let's get it started.
Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, and on Thursday, I get my friend Tyler Aki from Locked On Syracuse to join, talk a couple hoops, sometimes football, but mainly today, it's all about men's basketball because there's a lot going on in the conference. Tyler, how you feeling?
Could be better. If you saw the result last night. I mean, it's not just losing to Pitt. It's losing by double digits to Pitt.
Yeah.
And in the fact that you blew a lead that you had at that, it is a rough time in the 315 right now, Candace.
Yeah. It's sad that Pitt is such the marker of like where a team is good and where it's bad. Because even if you lose to them, it's like, okay, they played a tough game. But if you get trounced by them, it's like, damn, all right, where are we going here as a program? I totally understand that. And speaking of programs that are trying to find a new route, we had mentioned on yesterday's show that Chris Mack of Louisville could be out, but he is official that he is out as head coach of the men's basketball program. And I feel like it might be a sigh of relief for the Cardinals and maybe a tide turning for them. Do you see things shifting now that he's out of the way?
Well, it depends who you bring in. I mean, We're starting to see now how important coaching is, which programs have built culture, which programs have built sustainable success. And it ultimately comes down to coaching right now. Well, what's been Louisville's biggest problem in the last couple of years? Well, you had 3 different coaches over the past, 5 years now at Louisville. You're going to have your 4th now and technically 5th because you're having an interim now. I doubt the interim gets elevated to head coach. So it's a really tough thing in a business that is so predicated on relationships and recruiting, and having instability as the quote unquote czar of the program is tough. As the man who's making all the calls, calling all the shots, bringing in all the players, like it's tough when you have a flimsy sort of leadership over the last couple of years like they have had at Louisville. And I don't blame the fans for being upset, especially when you've got a coach who clearly lost the locker room by, I mean, how often do you see a college kid speak out? No, they're all put under wraps because of SIDs and PR people within the university. Like they do not speak out. They are coached pretty much to the word, it feels like, of how they're going to answer every single question that could be thrown their way. Yeah. And you've got a player that comes out and is asked, has Coach Mack lost the locker room? And he says no comment. Silence is very telling at times. And that certainly was one of those cases.
Absolutely. Malik Williams, we're going to go ahead and put him out in the universe. He definitely said it without saying it. And I would also argue to say that the loss against Virginia on Monday night, 64-52, a Virginia team that is struggling mightily this season in the conference, was probably the nail in the coffin just because the energy was not there. You can't even put up barely 50 points. That's just very telling of where the program is headed in the wrong direction. But we could see a flip side. We could see a change coming from the Cardinals as they are a staple program. And as we had mentioned on yesterday's show with AJ Black, we get guys like Bruce Pearl who are knocking at the door, who maybe want the opportunity to coach in. My mentions are going crazy on YouTube right now because people are like, Bruce Pearl, absolutely not. But I'm saying, if people like to be a part of basketball winning culture and rich history, why not? Why wouldn't you? Like, Auburn's cool when it comes to basketball, but I don't necessarily, like, we know that in SEC country, that is very much a football school.
I get that, and I get what you're saying there from a culture standpoint, but here's my rebuttal to anyone, because I feel like anytime these next 3 years, we'll see anytime there's a big marquee head coaching opening like there is at Louisville, like we could potentially see at Syracuse in the next handful of years. When you have these marquee openings, the list is going to be a lot of SEC coaches now, because those are the hot young names up and coming in the sport. And I would just say, if I'm one of these SEC coaches, why leave? I mean, Bruce Pearl's number 1 in the country right now. the number one team in the country. And he's built that at Auburn. He's getting top tier recruits. Same thing can be said about Nate Oats. Same thing can be said about Will Wade at LSU. Same thing, maybe not this year, but Eric Musselman at Arkansas. If you're it almost feels like it's the old Big East sort of reconvening where you've got these coaches that are characters and are building a really strong thing, an up and coming thing. They're taking football and they're trying to go step for step with football right now in the conference. And the SEC is looking like one of the strongest, if not the strongest, total body of work that you're going to see out of a conference in college basketball. So that's what my hesitancy would be if I'm one of these coaches is if I can be the number one team in the country, if I've got complete financial backing from the university because football is going to drag in a disgusting amount of money. I think the rights deal was just up to with CBS, so they're going to get even more money on top of that because of ESPN. Your teams are always going to be in the thick of things for college football, so that brings in even more money to your program as well. It's like, damn, why leave? I mean, it's not like Louisville is a quote-unquote destination city to live in either. It's not like you're telling me, oh, I can, like what Mick Cronin did, oh, I can go live in LA. I'll do that. It's not LA. It's not one of these marquee cities that you can go live in either. So that would be my word of caution. If you can win and also have very little pressure to win as well down there because football is king, especially if you're Bruce Pearl, you had a show cause a couple years ago and you were hired as a head coach with a show cause still, and someone still brought you, that's a program that believed in you, that took a chance on you, that essentially revived not just your career, your life. It essentially revived your life. And I think you have to take that and remember these sort of relationships. So
sound off, Tyler. Okay, let's give him the horn here. I feel that. I feel all that. And then if you think about it, ACC, we're trying to be the staple basketball program, but we're hanging on to rich tradition, right? We're not talking about the present. We're not talking about kind of the top names that are coming in. We also know that people are going. Coach K is not going to be the coach as much as we think John Shires is going to come in and make everything excellent. They struggled against Clemson, right? So there are going to be issues that face this conference moving forward. And as we're trying to compete with the powerhouse and full complexity of the SEC, it's definitely going to be difficult. So I completely agree there. And I also think, no tea, no shade, but Will Wade is not the guy if you want to talk about scandal. And Bruce Pearl might not be the guy either when you talk about scandal. If you want to have a clean slate Louisville, I think we have to bring in somebody that has fresh eyes and doesn't exactly have anything behind their back.
In the case of scandal too, if I'm Louisville, you got to go with something cleaner. If you want to muddy up the waters, you get back on the phone with Rick Pitino and see if he'd welcome a chance to come back, albeit one that probably Rick would say words that I cannot say on this show. And he would say that to the Louisville athletic director in that case in point. But you are just coming out of that with Rick Pitino. Is that where you want to go? Do you want to drag in a little more muck into your program? I would be careful of bringing in a Bruce Pearl or a Will Wade, even though that stuff is sort of in the past and behind them at this point. But it's something that if you're Louisville, do you want that look right now? And
yeah, that's very real. Very, very good observations. Other news to drop just for everyone's edification. Wake Forest beat Boston College on Monday, 87-57, and Carolina beat Virginia Tech 78-68. Big win for the Heels. And we are going to talk about the Tuesday games because I have to get into this conversation with my guy, Tyler Aki, because Syracuse, they are struggling, but it's okay. Things happen. But first, if you are not yet a part of the NetSuite family, you should join. It's the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth with the visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR planning, budgeting, and more. NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite for the new year. NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/LOCKED. Head to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial cloud financial system for growing businesses. Again, visit netsuite.com. Here with Tyler Aki here from Locked On Syracuse. And of course, we are going over the Tuesday matchups as we had mentioned, the Monday ones. But, here we are, Tuesday. We're thinking everything's going to be good. Easy win for Syracuse, get the emotion and the momentum back up. We're swinging things in the right way. And then they fall to Pittsburgh 64-53. And you got to ask yourself, what is going on in New York? I'm feeling a little stressed for you, Tyler.
The entire fan base is feeling stressed right now. I mean, Saturday was supposed to be a big game. Giannis Antetokounmpo in the stands with one of the big boosters of the program. Thanasis is going to be there. Why? Couldn't tell you why, but they're going to be there. But this is, I mean, when you look at the state of the program, I mean, this is sort of, we've seen the steady decline when you just look at the regular seasons. And anyone that is pro Syracuse would probably push back and say, well, there's the Sweet 16s in there. There's the Final Four in there. Yes. But when you look at the overall health of the program, it's certainly been on the decline pretty much ever since after that first season they were in the ACC. And as a part of that, this felt like the game where, all right, the decline became a nosedive. And you are seeing a program that has never had a losing season under Jim Boeheim, probably going to have it now. Because when you talk about games where, all right, if you're going to preserve that above 500 streak for Jim Boeheim, like this is one of those games you have to have. And when you lose to the worst power conference team, according to KenPom, that's a problem. And when you lose by double digits, that's even further of a problem. And when you lose after blowing a halftime lead, you've got a disaster. And it's a team that doesn't look inspired. They're not hustling out there on the floor. It's just a mess right now. And
what is I was going to say, what is Boeheim's contract looking like? And is it something to where if it's not a above 500 season, is it okay? We have to start having those transition conversations.
Well, I don't know if the contract is necessarily public knowledge right now, but it's one of those things where it doesn't matter what the contract is. He essentially has the lifetime deal with Syracuse, and he's going to leave when he wants to leave. But if things get under 500, I mean, that's the problem is you've got a Syracuse grad as an athletic director right now. And he's a young athletic director too, in terms of like John Wildhack, he just came over from ESPN. Was that 6 years ago? I want to say now. So what you want to be a 6-year guy on the job who's an alum of the university, and you want to be the one that says, Jim Boeheim, get out of here. Like that's the problem.
No pressure.
Like that's the problem when everything's family, right? And listen, family
you gotta tell me.
Family can be a great thing. Family can also be a disastrous thing too, because once you get into that second, like what do they always say about businesses? Like the first generation builds it, the second generation maintains it, and then the third generation brings it to you know what, right? Because that's how it works in the business world, and this is no different.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like I'm, speaking from the Carolina family aspect, you talk about Bubba Cunningham, our athletic director, who ended up saying it was just going to be an internal search, and it always was. And Hubert Davis was always the guy. And like credit to Roy Williams, he's earned the right to pick his successor. But when you look at Hubert Davis's season, sometimes you ask yourself, should we have gone elsewhere? Should we have broken the family tradition and maybe tried our hand at somebody different with fresh eyes? So I completely agree with that. I would say having an alum, everyone always has this nostalgic feeling. Like I know how sad I was when Roy left. And so you're thinking like, what is life after without a Jim Boeheim? And I'm sure that'll be difficult. And you don't want to be the guy to pull the trigger.
Right. It's tough. It's a really tough thing. And here's the problem with John Wildhack. And you don't see this for guys that have been around as long as he has too. I know I said he hasn't been there very long, but he hasn't had to make really a tough decision. Like, Dino Babers was in place there. Jim Boeheim was in place there. And those are your two money-making sports. I know lacrosse had to make a big move too, but he really hasn't had to make a tough decision, which when you're at a university for pretty much any duration of longer than 3 years, you're probably forced into making a tough decision at some point if you're the athletic director. And so far, John hasn't.
Yeah, and I want to say, even argue like maybe the Dino Babers situation is telling of how hard it is for him to make decisions, because I would argue that he probably should have made a Dino decision a little bit, longer ago. I understand wanting to keep
Dino
him, but maybe not.
Had 5 sub 500 seasons and hasn't gone to a bowl game, and he's still around. Like, how are you going to push out Jim Boeheim, who has never, and again, this streak could remain intact too after this year. It's not that far-fetched that they play 3 games above 500 the remainder of the season. How are you going to push that guy out when he's never had a losing season? Yet you hold the football coach who's had 5 in his 6 years there.
The place will burn. I can just see the fans going crazy. Now, I love following Locked on Syracuse. If you guys have not yet on Twitter, it's a great follow because their fans get busy in the comments and they let y'all know what it's about and how they feel.
Oh yeah, it was disastrous the other day. This is as split as I've ever seen the fan base too.
Yeah. So how are they feeling?
So there's a heavy contingency now that is, and then there's like subsets of each contingency. So I'll get into this. There's the one contingency that is Jim Boeheim can do no wrong. He will leave when he wants to leave, and I will allow him to leave when he wants to leave.
Yes.
Then there is the contingency that says he's got to go. The game has passed him by. I will not go to the game this week, next week, this month, the remainder of the year, next season, as long as he's the head coach. And then you've got the subsections of each of these. All right. So on the negative side, it's like, okay, well, who are the coaching options? Rick Pitino? Nope. Wouldn't want him there. Nope. Which is that's Tim and my pick. We would love to have Rick Pitino as the successor to Jim Boeheim.
Okay.
And then the other contingency is like, nope, has to be a family hire. Has to be a family hire. Can't go outside the family. And keep in mind, Rick Pitino is to a degree Syracuse family. He didn't play there, but he was an assistant coach under Boeheim, and he's a very close personal friend of Jim Boeheim as well. And he's someone that I think could expedite this sort of reboot of what you're trying to do with Syracuse basketball. Meanwhile, on the other side of the positives, it's like, well, like, yeah, Jim Boeheim can do no wrong, but it might be time for him to go. It's like you're teetering on the edge there. And then there's the people who are completely blind to the situation right now. And like they have the tinfoil hats on of this has to, like, this isn't bad. Like it is the dog meme with the coffee where with the fire in the background. It's like, this is fine. This is fine. Like we've built up 45 years of goodwill. Like this is okay.
Yeah. Because I think it's also the pressure or the assumption that, okay, once it gets to tournament time, all of it washes away. But you actually have to get to the tournament in order to have some success. And so they saw Sweet 16 last year. They're like, oh, yeah, I mean, it's fine. Don't panic. Don't panic. Maybe it's time to panic. Losing to Pittsburgh is certainly a time to panic.
Right. And you lose. What's one of the things that this team had last year? A lot of athletes. I mean, you had Quincy Guerrier, Kadari Richmond, Alan Griffin, Robert Braswell, Woody Newton. What did all 5 of those guys do? They left the program. And part of it is because Jim wasn't giving some of them adequate playing time. Some of it wasn't that they weren't being utilized the way that they wanted to be utilized to get to the next level. And when that happens and you've got a mass exodus to that degree and you reinfuse the program with guys who are not athletes, it's tough. Especially when you play a system that is predicated on being athletic in the 2-3 zone. That's why this is the worst Jim Boeheim defense of all time.
It shows, and you rely on that 3, and sometimes that 3 is not good to you, and that's okay. You know, I totally understand that. Another game that I wanted to get into, Duke and Clemson. Duke skated away with the win 71-69, and of course, you had a coach from Clemson feeling like a little bit shady towards not getting a couple foul calls that he's used to not getting when he's in Cameron. But, you know, Coach K, not undefeated at home this season, but certainly keeping the streak alive of feeling good about another conference win. And so I'm just sitting here saying, how does this game, of course, as close as it was, make you feel about this Duke team as we're heading into more of the thick of the season, getting into conference time? Still, they're the barometer. Like, they're the only ranked team that we have in the conference. I don't know. I'm feeling shaky and dicey about it.
Again, I'm not ever going to be worried about Duke playing in these close games as long as they win these close games, because you kind of like what I said last week. All right. It's the double-edged sword of being the best in a bad conference is you're going to cakewalk your way to an ACC title, cakewalk your way into the tournament, cakewalk your way possibly even to an ACC tournament title. You could double up this year. But on the contrary, you are the only chance at a quality win for everybody else in the conference. Like we've reached that point. I guess Florida State's making its way up a little bit, but we have reached that point where you are the quality win in the conference. Yeah. And what that means is you're going to get everybody's A+ effort every single game. Clemson gave their A+ effort in this game. They played neck and neck with a really good Duke team. And for a team like Clemson, who is right now going into that game 3-5 in the conference. This would have been a banner win to maybe elevate them, not necessarily into the tournament conversation, but at least push your way up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah,
and that's what you need right now. If you're some of these middling teams in the conferences, you never know. Maybe improve your seating a little bit so you've got a little bit of an easier route where, okay, you want to put yourself in the conversation on Selection Sunday, go out and win 1 or 2 tournament games in the ACC. And as long as you don't draw Duke, you're feeling decent. Like, I think any team that does not have Duke in its path feels confident in winning a handful of ACC tournament games in this conference right now. Yeah. I think they all do. As long as Duke's not in the path, you feel pretty good about it.
For sure. I also think that Trevor Keel and his return is going to be clutch for the Blue Devils. He's been out 2 games now, and his defensive, prowess is certainly something that is missing, and they're going to have to step up and find ways to not have guys in the game and certainly take it away from opponents. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. No reports on when his definite return will be, but there's a lot of great games going on for the rest of the week, and Wednesday, Saturday, and Monday, we'll have you covered for that. We'll have Jersey Drake on Freestyle Friday in the building, and then I'll recap some of the Wednesday games in a special exclusive episode that I'll tie in all in here. But Tyler Aki has plenty of more important things to do because he's the man. He's holding it down for so many things. I just want you guys to know that Tyler be talking about Chicago things. He talks about Syracuse things. You got to let people know where they can find you, follow all of your work.
Well, that's too kind from you, Candace, because you are the same in my book as well. But you can find us on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. We are with you every single weekday. You can find myself on Twitter as well at Tyler AKI_.
No doubt. Again, guys, follow that Twitter thread because it's a good time. It's a good vibe. I thoroughly enjoy the game content. Not only that, but allowing your fans to sound off and give their energy is always fun. So make sure you guys tune into that. Follow at LockedOnACC on Twitter. And for Candace Cooper and Tyler Aki, until next time.